Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we're on page 94, line 6. It's right here where I marked it. Al-Maqalat al-Ula. الموجود من الممكن الخاص إن استغنى عن محل يقومه فهو جوهر وإلا فعرض. So last session we finished with discussing the notion of a mafhum, the mafhum of a mafhum, if you like. And we clarified in the different ways that the thing that concept refers to is likewise expressed. There were 6 different ways. And we clarified precisely the consideration under which it is said to be a mafhum. And then we related that to like the notion of existence, which gave us the different modal kinds of beings, namely a necessary being, an impossible being, and a contingent being, right? And the summary of that was that the necessary is basically that which does not admit of non-existence, the existent that does not admit of non-existence. The impossible was that which does not admit of existence in virtue of itself. And the contingent was that which admits of both existence and non-existence, right? And Shaykh Mudarris rahimahullah uses this expression لِذَاتِهِ when clarifying the notion of the impossible, the mumtani' and the wajib. And he notes that, or rather we noted that could give rise to a potential misunderstanding. And he's aware of that too, and he clarifies that in a footnote which we didn't read last class, but which we'll read this session. But I explained what that clarification consists in, which is that the lidatihi expression means not that there's some entity here which has non-existence or existence as an entailment, as a necessary feature, as we were just mentioning the lawazim. So as a lawazim, it's not that. Rather, what it means is that when you consider the notion itself, that demands or requires or necessitates or entails a judgment that there can't be an instance of that notion. That mulahada, that observation or that contemplation or consideration of the notion forces you to make such a judgment, namely that it can't have an instance outside the mind, in the case of the mumtani'. And likewise in the case of the wajib, except that the judgment that the consideration leads you to is that its instance must exist outside the mind. Okay? This is what he's going to tell us in footnote 9. If we turn to that over here. قال ليس المراد. First of all, is that clear? We're all on the same page about that, right?
I just want to make sure for the translation because here, because I was absent last class, thank you guys for holding it down.
Yes.
Left off, it says first discourse. So
that's right here, yeah. Maqala ula, we're going to start with that, but I'm not going to read this. I'm going to read this footnote 9 right now.
Okay, and footnote 9 is related to...
it's related to his claim here that if the non-existence of the mafhum outside the mind is due to itself. He's going to clarify this expression, due to itself. What does that mean?
Gotcha. Thank you very
much. Have you been translating the footnotes? No, right?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't recall.
I'm going to translate this one, but...
You don't need to. We could just...
I have been taking a lot of notes, so maybe, Ladis, you could also take advantage of those and see maybe if... that could be added to the translation or some of the notes that I have.
Yeah, thanks for those notes, Akhi. They're really good.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Okay, so he says here, footnote 9, in clarification of this لذاته locution. ليس المراد بكون العدم لذاته أن للمفهوم ذاتا وهو أمر محقق يقتضي العدم في الخارج. What is intended by non-existence due to itself, quote unquote, is not that the concept has some essence, okay, which is a realized essence, which is some real item, but which entails that it be non-existent outside the mind. That's not what's meant. Why is that not the case? It's because لا ذات للممتنعات مطلقة. It's because impossibilities have no essence at all. There's no such thing. There are no such things. Right? They're not entities. They're nothings. They're the absence of. It's an absence of something as opposed to some kind of thing. Okay? So there's no realized something here that has features. Specifically the feature of not being existent outside the mind, or not possibly being existent outside the mind. And there's no sense to be made of the claim that an entity or the essence of a thing entails its non-existence. Okay? ولا معنى لكون ذات الشيء مقتضيا لعدمه. That's he's saying something like that is incoherent, right? Likewise, ليس المراد. Now he's going to clarify the same expression in the case of the wajib, because he said the wajib is, you'll recall, that whose existence in the kharij is لذاته, is due to itself, or in virtue of itself. ليس المراد بكون وجود الواجب لذاته أن ذاته علة لوجوده. That لذاته expression in the case of the necessary does not mean that its essence is the reason for or the cause of its existence. Okay, in that تكون الذات موجودة قبل الوجود فتقتضي الوجود, such that the essence of the necessary would be something existent prior to existence and would entail its existence. Because from that follows two things. One, أن يكون الواجب موجودا بوجودين, that the necessary exists by two existences, namely the one it has and the one it entails. If we construe the meaning of lidatihi as it having some realized essence that entails that it be existent outside the mind. So it's going to be existent prior to that entailment, not temporally prior, but logically prior, and entail also its existence outside the mind. So it would exist by two existences.
Actually,
yeah.
If I just may, doesn't that also implies that the existence is a non-separable accident?
Yeah, that's right. That's the. He's saying this should not be understood that way, because that will entail that one entailment would be that it will exist. It will have two existences, the one as a malzoom and the one as a lazim.
Yeah.
Right?
Seems circular as well, right?
Well, good. Exactly. That's the second implication right here. The second problematic implication. وَأَنَّ يَلْزَمْ مِنْهُ أَنَّ يَتَقَدَّمَ الْوُجُودُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. The second implication is that it entails that the existence is prior to itself. Okay, which is a problem. Okay, so you have these two problematic entailments in the case of the wajib. It will exist by two existences, and its existence would be before itself. In other words, it would exist before it exists. Okay, so if that's not what we mean by lidatihi, what do we mean? He clarifies that next. Bal al-maqsudu, rather the meaning is min al-awwal, in the first case, in the impossible case, the meaning is that أن ملاحظة المفهوم ملاحظة واقعية توجب الحكم بكون فرده ممتنع الوجود. Rather, what it means is, in the case of the first, that considering or reflecting over the concept of, for example, nothing, okay, the concept of nothing, which he gave as an example of the concept of the impossible, reflecting over that concept in an objective way, okay, just considering it itself without bringing anything extraneous into that consideration, necessitates a judgment that an instance of that concept is impossible of existence, right? So you reflect over that concept and you see that, oh, this can't be realized outside the mind. That's what it means. وَمِنَ الثَّانِي, i.e. The necessary case, or al-wajib, أَنَّ مُلَاحَظَتَهُ كَذَلِكَ, reflecting over it in that way, over the mafhum, توجب الحكم بكون فرده واجب الوجود, necessitates the judgment that an instance of it would be a necessary existent. فأمثال تلك التعبيرات لضيق المقام عن التعبير بطريق آخر. So he says, and these sorts of expressions are used like لذاته, okay, or بذاته. These expressions are used, okay, using this causal lam, okay, the lam of Aliyah. These are used because of like space doesn't allow to go into detail and fully expand, and so it's just an easy way to quickly get the point across, right, with this caveat. Right. Okay, so with that ends that second introduction. You recall at the beginning he said that he composed the treatise and ordered it to 2 introductions and some maqalat and a conclusion. He just finished both introductions. Now he's going to move on to the first maqala, the first discourse. And this discourse is going to be taken up with the 10 categories proper. This is the sort of main subject of the treatise, right? Now these categories, as I said to you earlier, is a division of being, specifically contingent being, according to the hukama, according to the Islamic philosophers. The mutakallimin do not share this with the hukama. They don't believe in these 10 categories. They believe at most in 4 categories. Okay? But he's going to unpack them in accordance with what the hukama say, and every now and then note where the mutakallimin disagree. Okay? Mafhum?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, just to go back to a little bit this point of that the mafhum of wajib al-wujud doesn't entail by itself its existence, its necessary existence. Is he separating here, like, from the idea of the distinction between tasawwur and tasdiq? Like, that there is if you have a concept of something, it doesn't entail its existence, because to to ascertain its existence, you have to go through a process of tahqiq and tasdeeq. Like you're in this different realm of cognition. Is that one of the, you could say, implications of what he's saying?
Well, yeah, that's, I think, true. You can't get the tasdeeq from just the tasawwur, yeah. But here that's consistent with what he's saying. I don't know if that's an implication of what he's saying, but it seems to me consistent with what he's saying. But here he's sort of just wants you to avoid understanding the li dhatihi expression as the mafhum entailing its existence or its non-existence, in the way that, let's say a mafhum might entail certain other features, right? Right. As Nassar was saying earlier, understanding the lidati here expression as a kind of inseparable concomitant, where existence or non-existence is an inseparable concomitant of some entity, some essence.
Right.
Right. That's what he wants us to avoid thinking when he says the mumtani is that whose as it says here, non-existence fil kharij is li dhatihi. Right. We conceptualize the thing or the mafhum as having some essence, which we find to require that it doesn't exist as a necessary concomitant, or that it cannot exist as a necessary concomitant. He's saying, no, that's not it, because the mumtani has no essence, right? That has entailment. Rather, it's that when you reflect on the notion in this objective way, you find that reflection, that analysis, that consideration leads you to make a judgment, which is that it cannot have an instance outside the mind. That's the meaning of mumtani'. Right? And likewise with the wajib, leading you to make a judgment that if it has an instance outside the mind, that instance would be a necessary existence. It could not fail to be. Right? So he's here emphasizing like a sort of you could say epistemic point. He doesn't want you.
I was just trying to get a sense, because it seems like he's trying to separate tasawwur and tasdeeq in a certain way. Like you have this tasawwur of something, but you cannot make, like, it does not entail that you can make a hukam about that thing fil kharij based on just the tasawwur of wajib and wujub.
Yeah. Right. Not just based on that, of course. But your tasawwur, with other considerations, will lead you to make a judgment that this sort of thing cannot exist outside the mind. Right? Like, if you look at the example he gives, the concept of nothing, right? If you think about that concept, you understand what it means, okay? You should be able to see why, provided other principles are in the background, like the principle of non-contradiction, let's say, you should be able to see, Assalamu alaikum, you should be able to see that concept cannot have an instance, because it will entail a contradiction, right? So there is a principle in the background here, let's say the PNC, okay, that's in the background, and with just that in the background, reflecting on the concept of the non-existent will lead you to make this judgment.
Right.
That it can't have
an
instance.
It kind of has to be like a syllogistic, like, even though you're not, let's say, expressing it that way.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be syllogistic. It doesn't. Well, I mean, there's a justification, but it's not a syllogism proper in the sense of you are appealing to things more known to clarify to justify something unknown. You're just clarifying what it means,
Okay.
right? What the expression means, right? And you're saying that, otherwise, if the concept of nothing can have an instance, then that's an absurdity,
Right.
because it would be something. But how could something be an instance of nothing? That just makes no sense, right? All of this is badihi, but
Right.
it might be
It's like a 10B.
exactly right. It might be obscure to you for one reason or another. Say you don't understand the terms, right? But it's not a syllogism, strictly speaking. You could say it's a reductio ad absurdum justification, but that's not. Maybe we could even say it's a syllogism, but it's not a like a burhan or something. It doesn't, right? You could say that in showing that why the mumtani, like the concept of nothing, why it can't have an instance, you could put that into a syllogistic format, which would be an instance of what they call qiyas al-khulf, a reductio ad absurdum. You could do that, right?
I might consider a negative proof the way Aristotle considers a negative proof for the LNC, or to show why it would be problematic to deny the LNC.
You mean because it would lead to an absurdity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a negative proof is this qiyas khulf.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, assume the contrary. That entails a
Yeah.
contradiction, right?
Yeah.
But the proof for the wajib is that like I'm just trying to think of it in terms of operations of the mind, like how this idea that you cannot conclude that something is lidatihi just by the conceptualization of that reality.
Yeah.
It's not an entailment in the same way. Let's, for instance, if you think of triangle and you think of expendable in that's like a lazim of the mahiyya of the triangle.
Yeah.
But it doesn't entail, like, you cannot make the same statement about its existence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why, if you recall, I said if, right?
Right.
And notice that he also says if. He says in kana wujuduhu in kana wujuduhu fihi fil kharij li dhatihi, right? Because prior to that, we don't know whether or not, for example, al-wajib refers to a real entity,
right,
a real essence.
Yes.
We don't know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? We're saying if it exists, saying that it exists fil kharij li dhatihi means the following and doesn't mean the following. Right? But we're not saying we can conclude to its real existence merely from conceptualizing it.
Right, like this idea of, in the logic, it's like there's a distinction between the question of ma and the question
exactly.
of
Yeah. We can only here we're talking about the in the case of the wajib, because he says in kana wujuduhu fihi. So, assuming its existence in the kharij, this is the ma haqiqiyya. Prior to that, it's just the ma that concerns the meaning of the word.
this nominal kind of...
Yeah, exactly. So that if clause here is important. Right? In kana wujuduhu fihi lidatihi. Right? And likewise with the mumkin. Wa illa yani wa in la wujuduhu fihi lidatihi. So that still assumes its existence, but it's not lidatihi. Then it's mumkinun khas. Fah? Yeah. So that's an important point you raise, and I think it's a benefit to clarify that. Right? He's not trying to, hint in the direction of to say nothing about giving some sort of ontological type of argument.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was thinking. Like,
I know that was what you were worried about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, good, but it's important to clarify that. طيب, did you have any questions, Akhi?
No, I came in the middle, so.
No worries. I'm talking about even
No.
last session.
No,
Good?
come to that.
Mafhum? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Sorry, which page?
We're on page 94 of the PDF.
Okay.
Al-Maqalat al-Ula.
Yeah, I'm here.
Right? The
Yeah.
first. Let me see. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay. So. So, like I said, he's now going to begin discussing the 10 categories. And he's going to begin with the most important one, namely substance. Okay? And following his standard sort of methodological procedure we've seen him follow, what he's going to do first is define the notion of substance and then give us its divisions. So define and then divide. That's his modus operandi. Okay, so what is a substance according to him? So he says, okay, let's now take this mumkin khas. Okay? Because remember, as I said last class, the 10 categories are going to be divisions of al-mumkin al-khas, contingent beings. In other words, these don't apply to impossible things or the necessary being God. Okay? According to the hukama in the Islamic tradition, there's some disagreement about this. Like there's a disagreement between the Shaykh and actually Aristotle on this. Aristotle applies the category of substance, which we're about to clarify, to God. And he says he's the actually most paradigmatic example, the most proper example of substance. The Shaykh departs from him on this. It's a big departure.
You apply substance in the secondary sense, right?
What's that? No, in the primary sense too.
Oh, okay, because what I understand is that substance in the 10 categories is secondary substance, not primary.
No.
So when I say Socrates is a human,
Yeah.
human here is secondary substance.
Yeah.
And
No.
That's what category refers to. Sorry, go ahead.
No. It refers to all kinds. All kinds, primary and secondary, and tertiary. For the Shaykh, okay, and this is in the background, and it's flagged by the al-mumkin al-khas expression there in the first sentence. The categories are divisions of contingent being. So, necessary being, or the necessary being, is excluded. Right? Why? That's in philosophy. That's explained in philosophy, in Ilahiyat bil-Ma'na al-Akhas. So we won't get into that. But I just want to note that there's a disagreement here among them. But in the Islamic tradition, the view is that this is a division of contingent being only. Some of the Platonists criticized Aristotle on this too, like Plotinus. Right? But I think that, first of all, as you guys know, Plotinus's works were known as Aristotle's works in the tradition. So, the Shaykh is departing from Aristotle, the real McCoy, but also Plotinus, whom they took to be Aristotle, even though, there were some questions about that even by them. Right? And the Shaykh does it on grounds which are independent of, as far as I can tell, anything that Plotinus, whether the Arabic Plotinus or the real Plotinus says. Right? He does it on the basis of principles of his own metaphysics, principles that are shared between him and Aristotle, although they might not necessarily be shared between him and Plotinus. Right? But that's a issue for theology proper. So the categories are divisions of contingent being. The first is substance. How does Shaykh Mudarris define substance? So he says the following. He says, basically, if you take the mumkinul khas, if you take some contingent existent, okay? Now, if that contingent existent exists independent of some other existent, okay, where that other existent is not a condition for the existence of that contingent that you started with, then that contingent existence is a substance. Okay? So let's, for the sake of clarity, call the first existent X and the second existent Y. Okay? So if X exists, but it doesn't exist in Y in such a way that Y makes X exist or contributes to X's existence or makes X subsist or is a condition for X's existence, okay, then X is a substance. Otherwise, if Y plays this conditioning role with regards to X's existence, so X exists in Y and Y is a condition for X's existence, then X is an accident. Okay?
Is that like a real life example?
Yeah. So I was gonna get to examples. So if you take like say, okay, let me give you an example of where that's not the case. Okay?
What about Platonic forms?
That's a complication.
Okay. So
We'll leave them aside. We'll leave them aside. Here we're not going to take a position on whether there are
just to make it
Platonic forms or not. We don't take a position. Maybe there are, right? If there are Platonic forms, there will be substances in this sense.
I'm
So
talking from that perspective.
yeah.
I'm not questioning its
no,
validity,
So
but
if
just as an example.
if there are such things, they would be substances. Okay, so but we don't take a position.
Yeah.
In other words, if there are such things, they would be these sorts of things, right? They would not be
Yes.
things that exist in something else in such a way that that something else is a
Exactly.
condition for their existence or contributes or
Exactly.
makes them
Yeah.
exist in some way.
When you say makes them, is it like they themselves make it, or is it through them actually something is made? Like becomes like an intermediary cause. Or
Yeah,
something else?
it's a kind of intermediary
Intermediary.
that plays a role
Sure, so then-
in their
Good. So that forms is
so that
If-
they would be
Yes,
if there are
if
such
there
things,
are such things, yeah.
right. So this, I think, definition covers them. It doesn't rule them out just on the basis of the account, right? It's neutral, in other words. So an example. So if you take, let's say, and this is just an example, okay? Don't take it too strictly. And it's usually good to start with these kinds of examples because they're easy to understand. Namely, artifacts, right? Like if you take, say, this table in front of me, right? Or if you take, rather, the color of the table. Let's start with that because it's easier, right? The color of the table exists in the table, okay? And the table is a condition for the existence of its color, right? You can't have the color existing separately from the table of which it's the color, right? The table contributes to the qiwam, the subsistence of this color attribute, right? This is why the color is not a substance. It's an accident. Accident here, Waris, is a technical term, okay? So don't think of cars crashing, okay? It's a technical term, okay? It exists in something else, namely the table, in such a way that the table is a condition for its existence. So it's not a substance. Substance has this independence of something else in which it might exist, but that thing, that other thing, does not make that thing that exists in it subsist. It's not a condition for its existence, for its being there. Okay, if I could put it like that, for its being there. Okay, like the table. Let's say the table, in other words, does not exist in something else like that. Just if you just take it with respect to its color, right? In the way its color exists in it, as conditioned by its existence. Sorry, someone want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So, would it be misleading to say that a substance is that which exists without some subject? Let's say.
Yeah, although like that's not misleading. That's correct, but you've introduced the notion of a subject now, right? You've introduced the notion of a subject. That's correct, but I didn't want to introduce that notion just yet, right? Because I wanted to, or we have to clarify, under what conditions is a thing a subject, right? It could be difficult for someone to understand that term without that background, and I think that and the background needs to be spelled out in terms of this idea of just more broadly something else in which that thing exists, okay, without that something else contributing to the existence of that thing, being a condition for it, making it exist. Okay, but yeah, that's right. Subject. Sheikh Mudarris here begins with using a term that's by itself broader than a subject, right? But it's a subject with a certain under a certain qualification. Okay. So he says,
Sorry,
yeah.
You mean subject is a mahal.
Yeah.
With a certain qualification.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we could just say simply that the substance is that which is unconditional. Right now.
Well, no, not that's too strong. That's too strong. You want to say, unless you specify unconditional in the sense that the thing in which it exists does not contribute to its subsistence. Okay, it's unconditional in that sense, not unconditional full stop. Okay, so he's saying if some contingent X exists, okay, then either it exists in such a way that it does not depend on some thing else in which it exists, making it subsist, or it does. If the first case, it's a substance. If the second case, it's an accident. Okay. This other thing that I'm referring to, in which, let's say, X exists, let's call it a mahal. A mahal means, most basically, some place, some substrate, some locus, some locus in which something exists. Okay? So let's call this thing a mahal. And let's use the word substrate to translate it. Okay? So if X is independent in its existence, if X exists and is contingent, but it's independent of a locus where that locus would be a condition for its existence or its subsistence, then X is a substance.
Specific substances, not general substances. Like, would you?
Well, you can say that for only some kind of substances, as we'll see. Okay? Salam, sorry about that. So Ajmal asked, what did you ask?
Or specific substance can be called.
Or if we can say
occupies-
existence,
it
it occupies space.
Yeah.
We can't say that, but that's not part of the definition. We can't put that as part of the definition because according to the Al-Maqalat, there will be substances that don't occupy space.
Yeah, that's what I said. Specific, like not general.
Yeah, for specific kind,
Specific,
you can. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
Now, according to the mutakallimin, however,
Yeah.
they're going to say that that qaid
Yeah.
is included in substance in general because they don't believe, at least the majority of them, do not believe in non-material or non-space occupying substances. Okay, this is why this division is according to the Al-Maqalat. Okay, sorry, just share this. Okay, so if some contingent being X exists in such a way that it is independent of something else in which it exists for its subsistence, okay, where that something else is a substrate, a locus, then X is a substance. Otherwise, in other words, if that locus is a condition for the subsistence of X, then X is an accident. Okay? Like, as I said, the example of the table and its color property. Okay? The table, unlike its color, does not exist in some locus that contributes, that is a condition for the table's existence, like its color does. Its color exists in a locus, namely the table, and this table is a condition for the existence, the subsistence of the color. Okay? Yeah, but we're going to start there, yeah. Okay? The table does not exist in any locus like that, i.e. in a locus that contributes to the table's existence, that conditions it.
And itself is a locus.
Yeah. It serves as a locus for something else, namely its attribute of color in this case, but it itself, there's no some further locus in which it exists that conditions its existence.
Unlike the color.
Yeah.
Good.
Waris, is that clear? Does that example help or no?
That's very clear.
Right? And it's important, this condition is important that the substance not exist in a locus of this sort, because it can exist in some locus. For example, this table exists in this room. It's in the room. That's true, right? The room is a kind of locus for the table. It's a place. Mahal means place, right? It's a place in which it exists. However, not in such a way that the place is a condition for its existence. Because if we move this table from this place to that one, it remains. But you can't do that with something like the accident of the table. You can't remove it from here to there, to the other table. Its existence depends on being in this table, unlike the existence of the table, which does not depend on being in this room, although it's in this room, which means it's in a locus.
Is this the reason why we call it accident of table? Because it has a relationship to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now-
Because we can have whiteness somewhere else, but we're talking about this particular
We're talking about this whiteness, yeah.
It became an accident of the table.
Yeah, we're talking about this whiteness.
Off, right?
Yeah. It's related to
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
relationship.
Now, this, by the way, I should note, is a disputed question among the scholars. I.e., can an accident go from one place to another? That's a disputed issue. Okay, but I'm just going to assume that that's impossible, without going into the arguments. Now,
It's funny because I was literally writing a note on that while, like, right before you said it, and I was thinking that it seems like the particular color of that table cannot exist in the locus of another table.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe like you could say, brown could exist, but that particular brown wouldn't be able to.
yeah. So exactly, we're talking about the particulars. We're talking about the particular table, right? First, substance is an accident. We're talking about those. The general color. Let's leave that aside for a second.
Right there.
Okay?
Yeah.
Let's leave that aside for a second, because that, whether the nature of those things, it's a disputed philosophical issue. We'll leave that for aside for now. But here, the mashhur view is that it cannot exist from locus to locus. Okay? It depends for its existence on this locus, this mahal. That's why it's an accident. The table is independent of that kind of a mahal. But it doesn't, note, I'm not saying it's independent of a mahal. It's independent of that kind of a mahal. One which is a condition for its existence, right? But it can exist in a mahal, like the room. Okay. However, this room, this mahal, does not make the table subsist.
In the same manner that color actually
Is rendered subsistent by the table, by its mahal. Right? So note that qualification. Okay? Okay. Now, a mahal of this sort, namely, one which renders the thing which exists in it subsistent, okay, and is itself some determinate kind of thing, some specific kind of thing, that kind of a mahal is called a mawdu', a subject. Okay? So any locus in which something else exists, where that locus is contributes to the existence, conditions the existence of the thing that exists in it, i.e. the subsistence of that thing depends on that locus, and that locus itself is some specific item, specific kind of entity, that kind of locus is called a mawdu', a subject. And so a mawdu', a subject, is a kind of mahal. And the relationship between mahal and mawdu' is umum wa khusus mutlaq. As you know this from logic, this relation. Namely, every mawzu' is a mahal, but not every mahal is a mawzu'. Okay? So if a mawzu' then is a mahal that renders that which exists in it subsistent and is itself some determinate kind of item, entity, okay, if that's what it is to be a mawzu', then we could say, as Nasar earlier indicated, that a substance is that which, when it exists, does not exist in a mawzu'. Does that make sense? Right? So, a mawzu' then is a mahal that is in itself a determinate entity, okay? It's mutaqawwim in itself, and it is a muqawwim, i.e. makes subsist, a subsistent factor in the a factor in the subsistence of something else. Right? Now, if there's some kind of mahal that doesn't satisfy these two conditions, it's not a mawzu'. Don't call it a mawzu'. Okay? So, technical terminology here. Right? Make sense or?
Yes, makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so all of this is by way of the definition of substance. Right? Let's see. Okay, so if we turn to the text, قال شيخ المدرس Al-Maqalat al-Ula, the first discourse. Al-Mawjudu min al-Mumkin al-Khasi. Okay, line 7. Al-Mawjudu min al-Mumkin al-Khasi, the existent, i.e. that which exists of the category of contingent, special contingent, or specific contingent. So notice that we're dealing here with contingent being. Right? He doesn't say al-Mawjud and full stop.
Yeah.
It's al-mawjud min al-mumkin al-khas. Okay? إن استغنى عن محل يقومه إن استغنى عن محل يقومه فهو جوهر وإلا فعرض. If this contingent existent is independent of, i.e. has no need for, a locus or a substrate, a mahal, which makes it subsist, i.e. which makes the existent subsist, okay, then huwa, yani that existent is a substance. Otherwise, i.e. if that existent isn't independent of that kind of mahal, i.e. a mahal that makes it subsist, then that existent is an accident. Okay? Or, as we said, more tersely put, if the contingent existent is independent of a subject in its existence, where a subject is a substrate with the mentioned conditions, then that existent is a substance, otherwise it's an accident. Okay. Now for the divisions of substance. Okay, so if we have this kind of entity, namely the substance kind, it comes in various types. And according to the Hukama, there are 5 basic types of substances. Okay? 5 basic types. And they are defined, or rather they are distinguished with respect to their relation to matter. Okay? What role does matter play with respect to them? Shaykh Mudarris says, okay, so if we take this existent, this contingent existent, that...
Sorry, I kind of put off. What did you say about matter? I thought that was an important point. You kind of cut off for me.
Oh, sorry about that. No worries. I said so according to the Hukama, there are 5 types of substances, 5 basic types, and Shaykh Mudarris here is going to distinguish them in relation to what connection they have with matter.
Okay.
Okay? So he says that, okay, we have a substance, okay, an existent that does not depend on a subject to exist, that does not, in other words, depend on a mahal that is a condition for its existence. Now, this kind of existent is either going to be maddi, is either going to be material, i.e., it's either going to be related to matter, mansubun ila al-madda, okay? That's what maddi means here. When you say something is maddi or something to that effect, you're saying it's related to matter somehow. So this substance is either going to be related to matter or not. Okay? So you could put it like this. This substance is either A, related to matter, or B, not. Okay? 2 main divisions. If it is related to matter, i.e. if A, either it's going to be characterized or described by or have the attributes of 3 dimensions, okay, let's call that A1, or not. Okay? So, I would write on the screen here, but I know you guys won't see it, so I'm not even going to bother. If it is related to matter, if the substance is related to matter, either that substance could be described, attributed with the 3 dimensions or not. Okay? If so, if it can be, if the substance can be described by the 3, if the substance is described by the 3 dimensions, then that substance we call body or natural body. That's the first kind of substance, body. Okay? Jism. Clear?
Is this from the text that you're reading, or is this the footnote?
I'm not reading a text right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just explaining prior to doing that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But we're here. Okay? So we are right here. So if the substance so either the substance is related to matter or not. If it is, either it is described by 3 dimensions or not. Okay? If it is, then we call that substance body, jism. Okay? That's the first kind of substance. So put 1, body. Substance, types, number 1, body. Okay? A body is a substance that is material, that is described with or attributed with 3 dimensions. Okay? That's the first division.
Maybe later I can make a flowchart of this, inshallah, and I'll send it.
Yeah. I have something here that I can take a picture and send to you guys, but yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, here it's a bit messy in my notes, but you could clean that up. But you follow the divisions, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so if it is material described by 3 dimensions, body. The second disjunct was it's a substance, material, but not described by 3 dimensions. Okay, if that's, now let's turn to that. Let's call that, well, we don't need to call it anything, but if you consider that now, okay, the substance that's material but not described by 3 dimensions. Okay. If that's the case, then it will be a part of a body. Okay? It will be a part of a body. So in the previous disjunct, we had a substance that's a body. Now in this case, in the substance that's not described by 3 dimensions, it will be a part of a body. And its parthood relation with respect to body will be of 2 sorts. Either it's going to be a part of the body with which the body only exists in potentiality, only exists, in other words, potentially, okay? Or it's going to be the part of the body with which that body exists actually. In other words, that part of the body is either going to be such that the body exists only potentially in virtue of it, or it is a part that contributes to the actual existence of the body.
So I'm putting here either it's a part of the body with which the body exists potentially.
Yeah.
The first
Or by means of which it exists potentially. Okay. Or it is a part.
That exists actually. Yeah. Okay.
By means of which it exists actually, the body exists actually. Okay.
Yeah.
If the former, i.e., if it is a part of the body, in virtue of which the body is in existence potentially, that part is called prime matter, or in Arabic, hayula. Okay, and this word hayula actually comes from a Greek word, hule, which means matter, but literally it means something like wood, I think. Right? It's supposed to designate this like material, fundamental material part of a body. Okay? Hayula, technical term. So, hayula is a part of the body which explains the body's potential existence. In other words, it explains why there could be some body here existing. It doesn't explain why there actually is a body here. It explains why there's the potentiality of a body here. متوجهي؟ Okay. The other part, the part of the body by means of which the body exists in actuality, that is called surah, form. Okay? In other words, the surah explains why there actually is a body, why a body actually exists, as opposed to merely potentially exists. Okay? So we have then a substance that is a part of a body which explains a body's existence and potentiality. And we have a substance which is a part of a body which explains why the body exists in actuality, why it actually exists. And both of these substances are not described by 3 dimensions, unlike the body. Thus, we have then, so far, 3 types of substance. 1, body, okay, which is a substance that's material and that's described by 3 dimensions. Number 2, matter or hayula, prime matter, which is a substance not described by 3 dimensions, that's part of a body, but a part of a body that explains why the body exists in potentiality only. And then number 3, we have a substance that is not described by 3 dimensions, that is part of a body, okay, and that explains why the body exists in actuality. Okay, so we have 3 kinds of substances so far, all of which fall under that initial division, which is substance related to matter or material substance. Okay, so 3 kinds of material, in the sense of related to matter, substances. Mafhum?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. So, like I said, all 3 are maddi, are said to be maddi. Yani chi? Yani mansubun ila al-madda. Okay? Yani related to matter. Body, and what kind of relation to matter now is the question. What kind of relation? Okay? The relation of body to matter is a relation of a whole to its part. Yani jism is a certain whole, and matter, the matter that it's related to, plays the role of a part in relation to that whole. Okay? So body's relation to matter is a whole-part relation. It's a mereological relation, as it is said. We also said prime matter is related to matter, right? We said it's maddi. In what sense is it maddi, yani related to matter? It's related to matter not as whole to part, but rather as something that is khas, specific, to something that is general. Okay? Yani, prime matter is a specific type of matter. In other words, it's a species of matter, of the broad category matter, or broad
Actually, I thought that prime matter was general, and what we consider material is basically what is determinate. Hayuna.
Yeah, that's secondary matter.
Yeah, so I'm considering prime matter here to be general in the primary sense.
No, that's a different sense. You're talking about the contrast between prime matter and secondary matter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right about that. Yes, but that's not what's at issue here. Here, what's at issue is the way in which prime matter is said to be modi, material, right?
I see.
In what sense? In other words, to say that it's material is to say that it's related to matter.
What type of matter?
So, yes, what kind of relationship? We said earlier that a body is material, okay, which is to say it's related to matter. How is it related to matter? It's related to matter as whole to part. In other words, body is a whole, matter is a part of it. Okay? We also said the other division of matter, as we saw the second division of substance was prime matter. Now, prime matter also falls under this maddi category. In what sense is it related to matter? Is it as a whole to part too? No, it's as a specific thing to a general thing. In other words, prime matter is matter insofar as matter actually exists in the world. Okay? Matter is the general category, and prime matter is a specific instance of matter. Okay? So matter here is taken in the sense of mutlaq, unqualified. Prime matter is matter qualified with actual existence outside the mind. Okay? So the relationship between prime matter and matter, when we say prime matter is maddi, is related to matter, it's related to it as a specific thing, is related to a general thing. Unlike in the case of body, when we say body is maddi, is related to matter, it's related to matter in the way in which a whole is related to a part. Okay, so the whole part relationship in the one case, the specific general relation in the other case. Okay?
Yeah, that's understood in the sense that, like, when you say body, the relationship between body and matter, for example, matter would be a part insofar that prime matter is one of the constituents
exactly.
of body.
That's right, exactly. But when we say prime matter is matter, we mean it's matter as realized in the external world, right? Yeah. We're not saying it's a part of matter or something like that. We're saying it's matter as actually existent fil kharij. It's the realization. You know, it's like saying Zayd and human, right?
I see.
So we can't say it's a type of matter then.
We
Is
could
it
say
fair to
it's
not a type, because then we're distinguishing.
not type as in
Yeah,
a specific
Yes, so we can
species,
totally
but
say that,
but as an instance.
It's an instant.
Yeah,
Like, for example, the distinction between material and corporeal.
yeah.
All of them is material. All of them are
Yeah.
body, but
Yeah.
distinction is there.
Right. We should. That's right. We should say prime matter is matter as realized in the external world. Okay. So the specific achas to the, or rather the khas to the am. Okay. In a sense, we can say type too. We can say type.
Yeah, right. So it
We can
seems
say
to me
type.
that, like, so like when you say prime matter realized, then you're just talking about secondary matter, right?
No.
But because it seems to me that prime matter that's realized,
Yeah.
I guess what I mean when you mean realized, I think it'd be actualized.
Yeah. Actualized. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me that when prime matter is actualized, it becomes a body. It becomes something material.
Or can we say it becomes something corporeal to make that distinction?
Yeah. It does. It does.
Corporeal.
However, it's still out there prime matter, just related to
Yes.
form now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the whole point of their claim that prime matter exists.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, it is connected to form, and it is, and then there's also secondary matter there, of course. However, prime matter itself still exists. Not independent, not alone.
But isn't prime matter potential? So you're saying it still exists in the potential sense.
Well,
So
no,
right?
no, it doesn't exist in the potential sense. It actually exists. It actually exists.
No, but when it actualizes, it's something corporeal, so it's not prime matter anymore.
Because when I think about prime matter, it's
Uh-huh.
pure
I think we're on the
potential,
same page.
right?
No, but yes, it's pure potentiality, but that refers to the pure potentiality it has for taking in all forms. Right? That's what it is by nature. However, when it exists out there, when it is rendered actually existent, it still has its own identity. It's just not an identity that is ontologically separate. It can't exist by itself. You can't point at some piece of prime matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah, you can do that.
it exists with form
Yeah.
always. However,
Yeah.
it's still prime.
I see what
It's still prime. Okay. Now, this is a disputed question, though.
Yeah, I see.
I'm not saying this is like obvious
Yeah, yeah.
or this is agreed upon. It's a disputed question, but the position of the majority of the hukama, the masha'in especially, is this: the ishraqis have a different position. But leaving aside
Yes,
those for
yes,
now,
yes.
the position he's talking about here is the majority view, which is that it exists out there as prime, although it's not independent. It's always connected to form. However, in relation to being more generally matter, you could say it's a type of matter, because there's also secondary matter, which is a type of matter. But the point is that it is matter, is related to matter as a specific to a general. It is matter as realized in the external world. It's not a part-whole relation or something like that. Okay? That's the sense in which we say prime matter is material, quote unquote. What do you mean it's material? I mean it's related to matter. What do you mean how is it related to matter? Is it like a part of matter? What kind of relation is it? Oh, it's a relation of the specific thing to a general thing. If I ask you, if you say a body is material, what do you mean it's material? Oh, it's related to matter. How is it related? Oh, it's related as a whole with matter as a part. That's the claim.
So when you say related as specific is a relation to the general, the specific here is prime matter.
Yeah.
And then the general is actual matter.
It's matter just
matter
in general. Per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tamam.
Mada. Just in general. In a mubham, vague, indistinct sense. You know?
Yeah.
Vague, indistinct sense. Right? Just like if I were to say either Zayd in relation to human or human in relation to animal.
Yeah.
One is more specific, one is more general. It's that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Not one is a part and the other one is a whole. Okay? So matter is maddi, prime matter is maddi in that sense.
Yeah.
It's related to matter in that sense. Okay? And then finally we had form, the other kind of material substance, i.e. the other kind of substance related to matter. How is that related to matter? Shaykh Mudarris says it's related to matter in that matter is the subject of inherence and form is the thing that inheres in it. Okay, so the relationship is one of inherent inherence, or inherent and subject of inherence. Okay, in other words, the mahal and the hal relationship. That's how form is maddi, i.e. it's maddi not because it's a whole of which matter is a part, and not because it's a specific kind of matter where matter is a general matter, but rather because it inheres in matter. Matter is the subject of inherence, and form is the thing that inheres in it. Okay, the thing that's halun fi. That's the sense in which form is maddi. So you say the third division of material substance is form. Well, how is form maddi? Oh, it's because it's related to matter. Well, what kind of relationship? Not whole to part, not specific to general, but in a thing that inheres and the thing in which it inheres, where the thing in which it inheres is matter. Okay? So that's the sense in which then these three types of substance fall under being material substances, i.e. being related to matter, but in different ways. Wadah?
So you're saying that, yes, so matter would be the locus of form. Right?
Now,
The hand of form.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so turning to the text now. Okay? We were
I guess I
on...
wasn't properly conceiving maybe of, what prime matter is qua maddi.
Okay, yeah.
So that was a bit, that was...
It was unclear to you, right?
Yeah.
Is it clear now?
A bit more, yeah.
Good. Do you have any specific questions?
I guess maybe I'll see after we read the passage. Maybe something will come to mind, but nothing specific.
Yeah. The key is to think about the sense in which you want to say that prime matter falls under material substance.
Yeah.
You need to.
Because you form, right? Because
What?
When we say like form is maddi insofar that inheres in matter.
Exactly.
That's one way to understand form. But form, for example, not qua maddi would be something immaterial, right? Something that is given by the intellect, but that's a separate subject.
That's
So is
no here. Yeah, that's a form in a related sense, but a different sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not form as a division of substance,
Yeah.
which is what's at issue here. Because remember, we are now discussing the divisions of substance, where substance, as we said, is a contingent existent that is independent of a mahal that makes it exist, or in short, that is independent of a subject.
Yeah.
Okay, we're discussing that, and this falls under this fall three kinds of jawahir: body, prime matter, and this kind of substance is divided to substance that is material and non-material. And the material is of three types: body, prime matter, and form, or substantial form, if you want to say.
Yeah.
Now, it's on us to clarify, why are they all divisions of material substance? And it turns out that they're all related to matter in different ways. One is a mereological relation, one is a logical relation, namely specific to the general, and one is a substrate and an item that inheres in the substrate relation. I don't know if we have a name for that kind of relation. An inherence relation, let's say.
Yeah.
Yes. So a mereological relation vis-a-vis matter, a logical relation vis-a-vis matter, and an inherence relation vis-a-vis matter.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think if you reflect over the sense in which you want to say form is, or rather prime matter is material, or a material substance, you'll see this better, inshallah. Okay, so we're on page 95, line 1. وَالْجَوْهَرُ. And substance. إِنْ كَانَ مَادِيًّا, if it is material. فَإِنْ اِتَّسَفَ بِالْأَبْعَادِ الثَّلَاثَةِ فَهُوَ جِسْمٌ. If it is material, and it is characterized by the three dimensions, then it is a body. وَإِلَّا, otherwise, i.e. if it is not characterized with the three dimensions, فَجُزْءُهُ, then it is a part of it. Of what? What does the it go back to? Of جِسْمٌ تَبِعِيٌّ. It's a part of the natural body.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, as a part, هو إما جزءه الذي يوجد معه الجسم بالقوة. If it's a part of it, either it is a part with which the body exists in potentiality. In that case, that part is hayula. Okay, it's called hayula. Hayula. Okay, or hule. Ajmal's favorite word. Yeah. Right, Mir Damad.
I used to Zanzibar between the classes.
They call it
Yeah, Al-Madatul Ula or Hayula. Ajmal Jan was at some point in his life very, very, very perplexed by this notion. He had nightmares about it. So it's called Hayula, Hule, prime matter.
Actually, that's true because one time you had to visit me from St. George to UT.
Yeah,
Scarborough.
just to clarify it to him. Tell him it's going to be okay. It's not a monster of some sort. This was when Ajmal was more mutakallim, but now he's much better. He's much more comfortable with it because he's approached hikmah. So, alhamdulillah for that. Huh?
That's a rough transition. I think.
It is, but it's a must. We must all go through it. It's part of maturity. Okay, so if it's a part of the body, but the part that explains the body's potential existence, فهو هيولا. Or it's a part of it, يوجد معه بالفعل وهو الصورة. Or it is the part with which the body exists in actuality, and that is form or substantial form, surah. And the body مُرَكَّبٌ مِّنْهُمَا, and the body is a composite of the two, يعني of hayula wa surah. Okay? طيب. Okay, so I say let's yes.
So by بالفعل, do you mean actuality or
Yeah.
action?
بالفعل, actuality. It's the مقابل of بالقوة. You see earlier?
So it's a technical term.
Yeah. So بالقوة and بالفعل. Body exists in potentiality. One matter explains why there's potentially a body. Form explains why there's actually a body.
So that's a usage in philosophy.
No. بالقوة and بالفعل. Yeah, very important terms.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't clarify them in this treatise, but they're discussed in metaphysics in their proper place. طيب, let's end here and inshallah pick up from line 5 next week. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.